Hi there, welcome to Healing Through Your Story. I'm Leslie Karen Hammond, the Empowering Story Whisperer, and I am so glad and grateful that you've decided to tune in, or if you're catching us on the replay, this topic this week is really important, so important, because it's focused on one question everyone gets asked at some point, and I can guarantee everyone will struggle to answer this at some point, because usually when this question is presented to us, it catches us off guard. It's never usually done in a positive, upbeat tone, and just the energy behind the question usually really, kind of catches us and throws us for a loop. So, are you ready? Here's the question. Now, I don't know that you can see it, but just picture my hands on my hips and me leaning in and asking you, who do you think you are? Have you ever been asked that question? If I had a limb to raise for every time that I was asked that question in my younger years, I would have multiple arms and feet that would go up. Now, could you imagine the difference in that question if someone first asked you, who are you? And then asked, who do you think you are? Completely different tone, completely different energy. So the focus around this week is exploring that question from the standpoint of when that gets tossed at you and you're not quite expecting it, and how important it is to be ready and confident and have a solid conviction in what you're all about and why you're here. So typically, someone will ask that question of you if they feel threatened, if they feel undermined, and if they're insecure. I think at some point in our lives, whether it's in a civic group or whether it's in a gainful employment situation, that there are always people who do not operate on the same vibration that you do. Their frequency tends to be much lower because they haven't done their personal development work. Maybe they just haven't explored the invitation to do so yet. Maybe it's out of fear, or maybe they just don't have the kind of supportive environment that once they begin to explore that, they might feel like they have support to continue to grow. So when someone feels like they're threatened, if they feel like they're under attack, please don't ever underestimate someone who is in that mindset, because you just don't know what they're capable of. So if someone does pose that question to you, consider the context in which it's being asked, and if you can pick up on the fact that they're feeling threatened, you can always ask them questions to try and figure out what's going on. So when someone asks you that question, who do you think you are? Well, there's a couple different ways that you can approach it. You can go to, well, I think, but I invite you to not do that, and here's why. The word think sounds like opinion, which doesn't sound like fact, and certainly doesn't sound like a belief. People think all kinds of things, but when someone believes something, when there is a solid conviction behind it, the energy and the weight behind that statement is significant and will make a mountain of difference in the way it's conveyed and the way it's received. So the next time someone asks you, who do you think you are? You could say a couple of things. I know I am such and such, or I believe I am such and such. And the important thing is, when someone asks you that, is to stand a little taller, draw your shoulders down and back, and by all means get into offense mode. as opposed to defense mode. Because if you get into defense mode, then you're going to be feeding what this other person is feeling. So whatever frustration they've got going on, you're just going to be feeding into that. And then it will be kind of an energetic tit for tat. Or it could be a mental or an emotional tit for tat, going back and forth, one person feeding off the other. And you don't have time for that. You don't have the energy for that. Everyone's got a lot on their plate. So you don't have the bandwidth. So why go there if you don't need to? So if someone asks you, who do you think you are? It's perfectly acceptable to pause. You don't need to immediately answer that question. In fact, if it comes to you in a hostile tone, you don't have to engage at all. One thing I want to make sure I don't forget is to let you know there is an awesome worksheet this week that accompanies this episode. And let me just read it to make sure I get the title correctly. How to get clear on what makes you rock. So the next time somebody asks you, who do you think you are? You'll have the answers. You'll be solid and you'll be able to answer with conviction. So if you would like to get that awesome gift, how to get clear on what makes you rock, then go to LeslieKarenHammond.com/21 download. Again, LeslieKarenHammond.com/21 download. And I'll also put that link in the comments down below to make it easier for you to find. But wonderful exercise to do because you do rock. You have a mission to follow. You are a child of the divine. And if someone comes at you with that question, they just haven't figured out yet that they are a child of the divine as well. They haven't quite found their place yet. They still have a tendency to struggle with worthiness issues. So if anything, if you can feel compassion for this other person, instead of being threatened by them, just imagine what a world of difference that could bring to them. For someone, meaning if you were to take the time, ask a couple of questions and find out what was going on, you could probably deflate a situation instead of throwing gasoline on it. And just what a world of difference that would make. So if I think back to the times that I was asked, who do I think I am? Probably the earliest goes back to elementary school. And one of the most unpopular kids there ever was. Definitely not part of the in crowd. Definitely looking in from the outside. And you know how kids can be sometimes. They can be cruel. They can be mean. And they can be, they can be very distant. If you don't fit in and they don't want you part of the crowd, then they'll do everything in their power to keep you at bay. And unfortunately, that question eventually carried over into my first marriage when the husband at that time must have felt threatened to some degree because I was really passionate about exploring spirituality and energy work, and I was growing and he wasn't growing. So in relationships where one person is stretching and discovering more about themselves and on that road of personal transformation and the other is not, then that's a time when that question could really come up. Because a person who doesn't grow, they're really happy in that little bubble. They're really content in their world. And for them, that's enough. But for so many of you, and self included, that's not enough. There's more. I need to learn more. I need to understand more. I need to do more. I need to be more. I need to participate on a higher level. And I suspect that you do too. So when someone close to you is not growing at the same rate that you are, be gentle with them. Don't throw it in their face, which sometimes can be kind of difficult if, like, say, one of you, for example, has completely changed your eating habits. Now, I say this tongue-in-cheek from personal experience with going on this elimination diet, and then I found that that my husband was not on board with everything that I was doing, because it was a pretty intense protocol. And it was really difficult to not be judgmental and to not observe everything that he was doing with this eye from, well, I'm doing this, why aren't you doing this? And I noticed that when that happened, it was a huge turnoff, and he went even farther in the other direction. So for those of you who are on that personal development path, have empathy for those who have not yet begun that journey. And for those who maybe put their toe in the water, but didn't quite like where that exploration was going, so they like retreated right away, and they decided that they just didn't want to go there. So everybody will explore that in their own time. But if you take nothing else away from today, please check out that worksheet about how to know what really makes you rock, so that if it ever happens where somebody asks you, who do you think you are? You'll be darn clear about it. You'll be able to say it with conviction, and you will be able to hold your own, because it's so important to know all those great qualities that you possess. And it's really important for those in your community who look up to you and who are watching you, because you have an influence on them, and they will look to you for leadership. You may not think of yourself as a leader, but I gotta break it to you, you are. So, thanks for tuning in for this week for Who Do You Think You Are? Because I believe that you are powerful. I believe you are a game changer. I believe you have a huge mission that only you can accomplish. And even though there may be a whole bunch of other people out there in the world that are doing something similar to you, no one will bring the same energy, the same intensity, the same vibration or finesse that you will. You're an expert on what you know, because it comes from your perspective. So, who do you believe you are? I believe you're a game changer. I believe you are here to make an impact. You're not here to play small. You are not here to hide so that other people in your life can feel good. You're here to stretch. You're here to ask questions. You are here to break glass ceilings, to cross boundaries, to be assertive, and to make a difference. So, thanks so much for joining today. This has been Leslie Karen Hammond, the Empowering Story Whisperer, and you've been tuning in to Healing Through Your Story. Don't forget to look in the comments below for the link to this week's awesome free gift, how to figure out the things that really make you rock. So until next week, bye for now. Lots of love and light.